Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love. Here at episode 101 of Sports Overview Topics. Bunch to go over today. Thank you for joining me. We're down to 4 teams en route to the Stanley Cup. Colorado Avalanche, the reigning 2-time champion, Tampa Bay Lightning, Edmonton Oilers, and New York Rangers, who just qualified last night with a dominant Game 7 over the Carolina Hurricanes. They are cemented into the Final Four. Can they do what the Toronto Maple Leafs and St. Louis Blues failed to do? Prevent the 2-time champion Tampa Bay Lightning getting to a three-peat? We'll see. Touch more on that in a bit, as well as we're down to 2 in the NBA. Finally, the NBA Finals will happen on Thursday as the Boston Celtics, who won in Game 7, pivotal Game 7, against the Miami Heat, going to face the Golden State Warriors. That is a heck of a matchup. I'm not sure if many predicted this matchup for the NBA Finals, but certainly an exciting one here to enjoy. Also, have my thoughts on the Lakers' new head coach, David Njoku's extension, what it means for the tie-in market of the NFL, much more. But thank you for joining me. If you're new to the podcast and want to see more of these sports overview topics videos, you can find those on the homepage. Click the description. Only take a couple seconds, but click that description and it'll take you to all the videos I have where I cover as many sports topics as possible, whether it's MMA, football, basketball. Try to do all many. Today I don't do much hockey, but we'll cover it today, and baseball, etc. But yeah, click the description. Find those videos as much as you can. But kicking things off in different fashion, as we're down to the trivial semifinals, really, for the Stanley Cup, as 4 remain. The Colorado Avalanche will take on the Edmonton Oilers in the Western Conference Finals. On the other side, the Eastern Conference Finals between the reigning 2-time Stanley Cup champions Tampa Bay Lightning going for a three-peat against the New York Rangers, who qualified last night. We're down 3-2 against the Carolina Hurricanes. Actually, we're down 2-0 from the start, but rallied back and won the last 2 games, most notably last night in Carolina, 6-2 over the Hurricanes. Now, but they will have to face a well-rested Tampa Bay Lightning team who swept the St. Louis Blues 4-0. And so they'll be rested, but the Rangers, I don't think will be roughshod or shy from the challenge. Chris Kreider, I believe that's the name. Again, sorry, don't watch or cover a lot of hockey, but when I do, it's definitely interesting. Chris Kreider of the New York Rangers has had a hell of a playoff performance thus far. He has 8 points, 8 goals so far in the playoffs. He had 2 again last night in the Game 7 victory, a dominant Game 7 victory. And, it's definitely interesting because no team, I think, has completed a three-peat in hockey, I checked, since the Toronto Maple Leafs a number of years ago, who had a three-peat. And, Tampa Bay Lightning, I'm not sure if the much core is still there, but, it'll be a tough task to win not 1, but 2 and 3 in a row. So that's going to be something to look forward to. They really started the whole Tampa Bay influx of, championships a number of years ago. Because they won their first couple years ago, and then the Buccaneers won, with Brady, they won the Super Bowl. Tampa Bay Devil Rays, although they didn't win the World Series, they faced the Los Angeles Dodgers, in the World Series. So, it's been really an influx for Tampa Bay sports last couple of years. So, that area has certainly been on fire, but we'll see. I will say, though, with what's happening in baseball right now, the New York Rangers and New York sports have some momentum and some influx right behind them as well. I will say that. Because currently the Yankees and the Mets are currently leading their divisions as well. So that area, that momentum is certainly there for the Rangers as well, gearing in towards. I know they're different sports, but when you got that momentum for your area behind you, it's certainly there. So we'll see how this series pans out. On the other side, the Avalanche, Colorado is certainly good to look forward to because, I have family there, of course, and Colorado sports, there's not a lot to look forward to the last few years or so. The Broncos are obviously got excitement behind them with Russell Wilson and such for this NFL season. The Rockies are there, but have not done a whole lot. But the Avalanche, they've been the best bet for Colorado sports the last couple of years. Last year, they came up short as the 1 seed in the Western Conference, and they hopefully, for their sake, this time get it done. They got a tough task. If there was one thing you can always bet on is a tough Canadian hockey team. A tough, last year, the Montreal Canadiens, came up short against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. This case, it's the Oilers, the last stop for the Canadian hockey teams. So, see how they go. But it's an interesting 4 teams. Fair so leave it at that. But should be interesting. Hearing from that, speaking of finals, we are here in the NBA Finals. It is now official. It will be the Boston Celtics, Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. 2 dynamic, interesting stories, I will say. You got 2 loaded and teams with depth is certainly look out for. With the Warriors, you have the been there, done that, but it's a nice narrative how both these teams have really, mostly their cores came from the draft. And that's certainly good for the draft's sake and GM's sake, showing you how important the draft is for the NBA Finals. But yeah, you have the been there, done that, the former dynasty of the Golden State Warriors versus the new breed, the young core, are also about the Warriors. You have trying to get back and show them that they are still who they once were against the Celtics, who are young, they are hungry, are physical, big on defense. It's going to be an interesting matchup. Now, before I get into Celtics and the Warriors, I will say that about the Heat and the Mavericks, because I don't want them to go untouched about this whole offseason. Mavericks and Luka, they have a generational talent. We know with Luka, and I expect them to, really, they kind of overperformed. They beat a tough Jazz team. They beat the number 1 overall seed in Game 7, blew them out one of the most historical blowouts, Game 7, you will ever see against the Phoenix Suns. And then they did all they could against the Golden State Warriors, but ultimately come up short. I mean, they have good pieces around them, or I should say okay pieces around Luka, but they certainly need another guy to up the load with Luka. And we've been saying it for quite a bit. You know, Porzingis, he was very good at times, but inconsistent. And, that dynamic just didn't pan out. So, I mean, he got traded to the Wizards for a reason. Now, Dinwiddie, he did really solid during his time this season, but they still need another guy. Miami Heat, bit of a disappointment. They were my prediction to come out the East. I mean, Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Oladipo, Tyler Hero, Shrews, Gabe Vincent, etc. Adebayo. They just... Butler said it best in his semifinals against the Sixers. If they can just worry about defense, then they'll be good. The problem is their defense kind of went away with the Celtics, and now they did have their chances, and I feel bad for Jimmy Butler. They had their chances. It was right there. If Butler makes that three, they're here in the NBA Finals, but did not go, but incredible effort by Jimmy Butler the last two games. Only sitting 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes, the entire two games. And 47 in Game 6, 35 in Game 7. It just didn't happen. But now with the Celtics and the Warriors, Warriors, we know what they are. They live and they die by their shooting. And it can get out of hand for their opponents quick. When they're on, and when they're not, they're not. Klay Thompson, fully healthy, it appears, by now. If you don't think Klay is healthy, then from his past injuries, and I don't know what you're thinking. Steph Curry is Steph Curry. Greatest shooter we've ever seen. Draymond, he isn't who he was, but he's very, very still serviceable, and he's certainly still the juice to that team. Wiggins has come up. He's been vastly inconsistent since the All-Star break, but he's picking up his role as of late. Jordan Poole, we've seen his stock certainly risen up throughout these playoffs, and it's something to see. So they're certainly loaded, they're certainly packed, and it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting how they fare against the young Celtics team, because Celtics are young, they're hungry, they have not been to an NBA Finals since 2010, the Celtics, but this is the first Finals for pretty much this whole core. I mean, Jason Tatum, young, Marcus Smart, reigning Defense Player of the Year, Daniel Tice, I mean, Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, Grant Williams. I mean, they got some studs on this team. And I mean, they just keep looking good, looking good, looking good. I mean, I had my doubts when they face, although I picked them first the Nets, I still had doubts because, KD, Kyrie, but, battling through against the Bucks, winning it, although it looked like sometimes they were trying to give it away against the Miami Heat, they battled through and they advanced past Miami. Now, can they finish the job? Can this young core finish the job? First, the Golden State Warriors, who have been there and done that, and trying to restore their power that they had years ago. We'll see. But I definitely think the Celtics, they got a chance. Because the Warriors don't have pretty much any big guys. Really big guys. And I mean, the Celtics, they have the size, they have the physicality. I say, I mean, they got the reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart. I mean, with Daniel Tice, with Robert Williams, and Marcus Smart, those three healthy, they're going to play it tough, I'd say, for the Warriors. I'd say this is 6 games. 6 games at least. I mean, it's going to be starting in San Fran on Thursday, and it will certainly be a joy. But for everyone to just sleep on the Celtics and to give the Warriors the simple win, personally, I love the Warriors. You can certainly appreciate the Warriors considering they actually were a dynasty. They actually been there, and Now they're trying to get back to where they were, or semblance of what they were a number of years ago. But the young and hungry Celtics team will certainly have something to say about it. Not sure who will win right now, but it's going to be a joy. It is going to be a joy. Speaking of the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers have completed their head coaching search, and Darvin Ham is their new head coach. Now, he is, you could say, a out of the blue signing for some reasons. But he's been an assistant coach for Mike Budenholzer the last almost 10 years, almost a decade. So, he's been around this, a finals winning culture, and a winning culture. So, hopefully, now, the Lakers, it's going to be a tough task, obviously, for him. So, but the Lakers, it's difficult because they gave away, and I've said this before, they gave away, Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo. All three have done hell of a jobs this season for their respective teams. Brandon Ingram qualified for the playoffs before the Lakers, without the Lakers, and his stock only rose. He had some great games versus the Suns. Some great games. So, hats off to him. But the Lakers, you have to know, what. And I'm sure Ham probably knows what he's getting into. Because LeBron, obviously put up his points last season. The problem with him wasn't really on the court. Anthony Davis, anything but. When he's on the court and when he's healthy, he's a great talent, and he's certainly there. I hate when the media says, well, when he was healthy in the bubble, they won. But pretty much the bubble and the time off won them the championship. That's there. And not to discredit him, but it was like that. And then you got Westbrook. Those are the three big deals you gotta deal with as the Lakers head coach. Westbrook, I feel his stock took a blunder real blunder this past season with the Lakers. I mean, look, Westbrook is a Hall of Fame player. Certainly a Hall of Fame player. But, I mean, some of the times where he's on the field and, you know, Kyrie admitted that he messed up this season. He messed up. Westbrook, you know, I feel at times there was a bit of denial and a bit of, not taking credit for their miscomings. I mean, they signed them for a reason. They probably thought, with all these pieces together, provided with healthy, they could go far. But they were not healthy, they were inconsistent, and they were just meh. But Darvin Ham, I wish him the luck. The Lakers are one of those teams, Lakers and the Celtics are the two best and noble franchises in the NBA. And when they're both good, the NBA is much better. The Celtics are good. They're in the NBA Finals. The Lakers didn't even make the playoffs. So, again, hope for Darvin Ham and hope the best for the Lakers and turning what was a mess of a season this past season around. An interesting topic I want to get into now. Colin Kaepernick. Mid last week, I believe on Wednesday, Colin Kaepernick, who took a knee in 2016, who has been an activist for the last number of years, who has not played in the NFL down, and since that season is now, or last week he had a workout with the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, my thoughts about that were pretty simple. You can say what you want. Your feelings are how they were about what Kaepernick took a stand for and whatnot, and how him not being in the league since. As far as him working out with the Raiders, Kaepernick is a big presence, which is kind of same but different for Cam Newton. The reason I say that is because Cam Newton is a big presence. Obviously a former MVP, obviously in his prime, was almost untouchable with his talent. But because of his past, because of his history, I think he would be a great backup for a number of teams in the NFL. But because And also, due to his performance last season with the Panthers, it's kind of almost undoable because once fans see Cam and compared to Starter, as soon as their starter doesn't do good, they'll want to flip the switch. And that's not a good presence really for the locker room. Kaepernick, I feel, has some of the same effect, although differently, because of what he's done. And, he obviously, although he's played in a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game after that, he doesn't have really the accolades that Cam had, but a different circumstance will cause him not to be a backup in the league. Although it will be, the Raiders are good, definitely good with Derek Carr. Good for years to come. I mean, they went to the playoffs for crying out loud. They're one of my favorite teams, high-ranked teams in the NFL with what they've done this free agency. So Kaepernick going to the Raiders as a backup, I could see. Also considering Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniels. I mean, no, cannot get more rules and more sound than the Patriot culture. And those two certainly were the Patriot culture for many years. So I think it would be a good situation if they choose to sign Kaepernick. David Njoku, who's been in a weird sort of place in Cleveland the last couple of years. He was a first round draft pick of the Bears a number of years ago. And he did well. He didn't do great, but he did well as high end. But, they added Austin Hooper before the 2020 season. And, Hooper has done okay. He did okay the last couple years in Cleveland, but Njoku was still steady. Harrison Bryant they have as well, which opted for the Browns to cut Hooper and have him sign with Tennessee. So there's that. But good for Njoku. 4 years, 57 or 56.75 million extension. He's now the fourth highest paid tight end currently interesting for the NFL, according to the page I saw the other day. It's interesting now that I say because Mark Andrews, one of the things we can all agree when it comes to NFL contracts or sports players' contracts is specifically the ego. The ego and, when one player sees a player he knows he's better than get a contract that's bigger than his, he takes that a bit to heart, and he obviously wants to get a bigger contract. But I'm not sure about Njoku's placement. I mean, it's going to be interesting because Darren Waller is due for extension as well for the tie-in market. And I mean, besides Kelsey and Kittle, I take Darren Waller right behind Kelsey and Kittle, provided when healthy. Dallas Goedert, he got his extension. I mean, Mike Gesicki, he got paid as well. So, we'll see. But it's definitely a tone setter for an underrated market in the NFL. But nonetheless, that's all I have for the podcast today, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Interesting episode. If you did, of course, click that like in the corner and leave a thumbs up. Help out the video. But nonetheless, thank you all for today. I'll be back next week with episode 102. But interesting stuff. Talked about the podcast today. Again, with the Stanley Cup and NBA Finals. But thank you all. Be safe. I'm Ajoe21love. Getting out of here. Peace.